Welcome to the Any Spartan Show. This is our Killington special. Once a year when Spartan Race have the Killington Beast, we get on the line and we talk about it. It's always a huge event. I was not there, so Sandy and Josh take the lead with our special guest Linda. Enjoy the show. If this is your first time listening to the show, thanks for checking us out. We record roughly weekly, and you get to listen to myself, Paul Jones, Sandy Ree, and Josh Chase chat about the obstacle course racing scene. We also do interviews with race directors and business owners in the OCR space. I encourage you to go and check out all of our other episodes over on podcast.anyspartans.com, and while you're there, subscribe to us. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, anywhere else you're going to find a podcast. You can also find us over on Facebook as The Any Spartan Show, and we really encourage you to leave questions in the comments that we answer every episode. Now let's get on with the show.
You know, I learned something actually when you start a podcast without a real introduction. It's called a soft intro. So that's what we're kings of. So welcome to the soft introduction of the New England Spartan Show. This is episode 57, an episode that will be dedicated solely to one topic and one topic alone, and that will be Killington, Vermont, and the Spartan race that everybody decided to either go race or attend one way or another. And we have a little bit of a different cast of characters as we've had the last few shows these last few weeks, so I'll let them do their own introductions because I feel like I won't do them justice. So I'm Josh, as you probably know, and that sounds really pretentious. I'm sorry. Next.
This is Sandy. You already know me too. And it's always interesting when people recognize my voice when I'm talking to my husband, just walking around a festival area and somebody pops up and goes, I know you. I listened to your podcast, because that actually happened Sunday morning at Killington, and it was really weird. So
and it makes it all worth it.
I'm Mad Mac. As a guest this time, we have...
Hi, I'm Linda. I just completed my first beast yesterday and completed my first trifecta. I finished in just under 11 hours. Fortunately, a friend of mine had a headlamp. We jumped through that fire. And oh my gosh, that was 1 in a million feeling. And I've already been asked, am I going to do 2018? I'll let you know on Tuesday.
So let's kind of talk through a few pieces of this. So we brought Linda on to kind of give us the newbies aspect of Killington, and Sandy and myself certainly have been through several years of it this time. But you know, I think this year for us, and I'll say my piece, and then we can go through everybody. But I think this year was a little bit different. For me especially, I was actually originally dubbed up to do the Ultra Beast, and after a very long year of doing very long distance events, I decided to walk back the challenge of Killington. Somebody inevitably will say I chickened out, which fine, say that, I don't care. But no, I had the opportunity to do the Beast with Molly's dad and just take it easy, quote unquote, if you can take Killington easy, and just enjoy the course. And for me, it was about, my big goal was accomplishing the swim. And, we've talked about my fear of water and everything several times on this podcast. We won't get into it anymore. But I went out with the goal really of conquering that swim and climbing the ladder and attempting the Tarzan ropes. And for me, it was a pretty successful weekend. I finished the course on Saturday, got into the water, managed to swim to the ladder, something that I do not do. I don't do anything involving water. Climbed the ladder, failed sort of miserably on the Tarzan ropes the first day, but actually went out for a second lap on Sunday and did even better, got a little bit further on the Tarzan ropes, still was not able to actually ring the bell, but it's odd to see that, finishing the Beast comes second rate to my story of conquering my fears of drowning a horrible, colding, freezing death. So, that was my success story for the weekend. So we'll talk about the event itself, but that was my kind of headline. What about you, Sandy?
We gave him a little bit of a swimming lesson Saturday night going into Sunday, trying to tell him how to conserve a little energy, because I think that sapped him pretty good. But you did the swim last year, right, Josh? But you just swam to the ladder and then kept swimming, right? Or you grabbed the rope and just hauled yourself along the rope, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it was a glorified rope carry. I just grabbed the guide rope and chugged myself along. There was no swimming involved. It was my life vest floating me along as I pulled it over to the side of the pond and did 90 burpees in the mud.
And this time you only had to do 30, right?
Time. Right. Yeah, I'd never touched that ladder a single time before, so it was a nice accomplishment. Felt good to check that box, I guess. Now we just have to finish it, so we'll see what happens next year.
All right. Well, you did get to the 4th rope, right?
Either the 4th or the 5th, I forget. Is when you're hanging up there.
Second
you don't
to
really
last. How many were there?
I think there were 5. So yeah, that's probably the 4th one.
Yep. So you got to the 4th if there were 5. You got to the 5th if there were 6, because you got to the second to the last one.
Yep. And then
I have it on an interesting video of me hanging over the edge of the bridge trying to video you doing said ropes.
Well, that video will teach people a valuable lesson, and that's don't keep your mouth open as you fall into the water. I ended up with a mouth and nose full of Lake Snowshed water as I plunged swearingly down into it. So,
yum. So we've got Josh on because Josh, that was your, how many times is this now for the Beast for you?
This is
5,
number
6?
5 for me, I believe.
Wow. So 5 on Saturday, 6 on Sunday, or 4 and 5?
5 and 6, yeah. So if we count them individual, 6 treks up that stupid mountain.
That one definitely counts individual. So we've got Josh on as the veteran, the grizzled old veteran, and we've got Linda as the first time experience. I'm gonna go last. I didn't do it. I've done it 3 times before, and I said, yeah, no thank you to that race. And the joke that Linda was going on with Tuesday is the first time I did the Beast back in 2012, I finished it, said, no way in hell, that sucked. I'm never doing that again. And it took until about Tuesday before I said, okay, I'll try it one more time next year. So that's why she's going to let us know on Tuesday whether or not she's changed her mind.
Right.
So Linda, what did you think? First, let's talk a little bit about what did you think about before you even got into the race? Because you hear all these stories about Killington and such. Tell us about your mindset and your preparation prior to starting.
Well, I had been reading a lot of people's posts about, how Killington is literally, it will kill you. But I tried to stay positive with it. I really just wanted to go in with an open mind, and I thought if I could finish under 12 hours, which I did, well under, I think I was going to do all right. My biggest worry, like Josh, I have this fear of not liking to swim or be in water that I can't see the bottom of. That's just been a lifelong fear of mine. I can go in the ocean all day. I can swim in the waves. I can go into 20-foot deep pools. Not a problem. But that swim was going to either make or break me, and I made it. I had no problem. I had a wonderful Spartan teammate who went in with me. I think what really helped me was the life jacket. If I had to go in there without a life jacket, I don't know if I would have done it all. So I just got that life jacket on. I had the mindset walking from the life jacket spot over to where we went in, at the little beach right there. And I said, darn it, I'm going to do this. So I went out. My teammate was out there with me. I just kept swimming. I got to that ladder. I climbed up the ladder. And I reached for the rope, and I'm pretty sure I reached for the second rope, and I fell in. So I was like, no big deal. And there I am in the middle of that little lake, and I'm looking around. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did this. So I just kept swimming over to the edge, and there was my husband taking my pictures. My husband was actually on the bridge taking pictures as well, and I can't wait to see what they look like because, the smile on my face was huge. It was a huge accomplishment for me. I only had to do the 30 burpees, so I was really happy with that. But that was my biggest fear. It wasn't even the death march. It was the water. I did that, so the march was like, relatively a piece of cake at that point. It took me forever and a day to get up that death march, but I did it. But I've been racing a lot this year, and it's been the mindset of overcoming those obstacles, overcoming those fears, and just being out there and enjoying the day. I mean, I could have been doing a lot of other things yesterday, and I chose to run a Spartan race.
That's awesome. And I'm really, really happy to hear when people conquer those fears, because everybody has a fear of something different. Mm-hmm. For me, it was never the swim. It was always, the uphill climb, because that's what I'm bad at and what I hate. And for those of you who may not have ever done Killington, life jackets have always been available for the swim at Killington, but this was the first year that they actually came out and said, you must have one. They made runners run out, grab a life jacket, run back to the start of the beach. Then they swam to the exit, and then the life vest drop off was right there at the exit. So you got to drop it off there. I heard from some people who hated having to wear a life vest because they're strong swimmers. But when you get in water that cold, and I'll ask in a second because I obviously didn't experience it, but when you get in water that cold, you never know how your body's going to react. So it's not necessarily a bad idea to have a life vest on. Mm-hmm. And they had a couple different kinds of life vests. So you even got a choice as to which one you were going to be more comfortable in. Mm-hmm. So how cold was the water? I don't even know.
Josh, you want to go first?
I actually thought it was semi-refreshing. Like compared to last year's water was on that ice cold level. Last year, I think, was probably the coldest I'd ever felt it. Because even the years before, when I didn't do the swim or anything, they'd still make you walk through parts of the water in order to do it. But the water this year, actually, I mean, it felt kind of good. It was, relatively early in the race. It was about mile 5.25, 5.5. So to come down that mountain after a pretty steep first climb, and then throw the life vest on and wade into the water, it wasn't to the point where it was incapacitating you, which I think obviously helped a ton of people, as compared to last year, obviously, where you got in the water and it was ice cold and you had no grip by the time you got to the ladder. So I found it refreshing. And then even exiting, the other thing that helped is we had a beautiful day. So it was 75 degrees. It was sunny. So when you got out of there, you were in the sun, you cooled off, but you weren't ice cold. You weren't cramping up afterwards. So I think we kind of lucked out. It was kind of the perfect combination.
Yeah. I agree as well. I thought it was quite refreshing. I had heard from people, like we said earlier in years past, that were cramping up and were having a lot of trouble with it. I didn't feel that way. I felt that, like I said, it was quite refreshing, not as cold, and a little muscle relaxing, shall we say. Although I will say it did take a little bit out of me in general, just swimming over to the ladder and then up the ladder and then over. But yeah, I would do that again in a heartbeat. I really would.
It sounds like she already changed her mind.
Not necessarily.
She's only talking about the swim right now. Let's give her a little while. In waiting for Josh and Molly at the bridge yesterday, I did hear a couple of kids in the pool in the water who, I heard one guy who goes, "Man, you need to hurry up because I am friggin' freezing here." And he was shaking and shivering. So even the water temperature is very different from person to person. What some people think of as being refreshing, others are going to think is god awful and the worst thing in the world. But Josh is right in that with the nice day, you got to get out and warm back up in the sun.
Absolutely.
And there have been years where it's been, 45, 50 degrees outside and overcast and or raining, where there was no real opportunity to warm back up. And that pond has been a killer at times.
Well, you almost had no choice but to warm up, because after you did your burpees, you went right back into the forest, and you were knee deep in mud. So you had no choice but to warm yourself up.
Yeah, that whole second half of the course, that climb, to be honest, the Death March is what it is, right? It's and for those that don't know, you start at the festival area, and it's little over a mile if you factor in going all the way to the peak, which we didn't do this year, but a mile up the hill, and you're seemingly every step is like a foot of elevation. But to me, I actually thought the climb before that was even harder, because it went from the lake, which is essentially the lowest part of Killington, all the way up to the top of, I believe, Bear Mountain or Sky Peak, one of the two. I forget which one.
I think you're right when you say Bear Mountain. I think.
Yeah, and it was a combination of trudging through just muddy path in the woods, to going out to a ski slope and climbing up a hill, to, just one of the worst mud crawls I had ever seen on the backside of that course. Uphill.
Uphill, I heard?
Uphill,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Ugh.
And even worse the second day. It was terribly muddy and disgusting the second day. That climb, and it just seemingly went forever. And if you look at distance wise, it actually was closer to about 2.5 miles, that one, from bottom of the lake to all the way at the top when we started coming back down. So longer than the Death March, not obviously as dramatic a climb, but certainly as intense. And for me, just as painful, I think.
Yeah, and there was no way to escape it. There was no way around it. It actually reminded me of the Berry Super this year on Sunday, when it was just nothing but mud. And just when you thought you were done with the mud, there was more mud. It just kept going and going and going.
Spartan's pretty well known for giving you false summits. You think you look up and you go, oh, there's the top. Oh, thank God. And then you go around a little corner and no, that's not even close to the top. Josh, I remember you a couple years ago we caught you on video going, oh my God, you guys are going to love this, as you're yelling back to the people below. And everybody just had this instantaneous sense of dread because you knew that he was standing on a ridge looking up even higher, even though we couldn't see it.
Oh my gosh.
So they tend to do that a lot. Did they do it a bunch this weekend?
Well, I mean, there were a couple times in that climb after the lake where it's not that you got up to a ridge and then you kept climbing, but you would come out of the woods and climb up a ski slope and then pop back into the woods, and you'd think you've climbed up a long way, but then you come out of the woods onto the ski slope and you've got even further to go. So a little bit of a different kind of, mind game they were playing this time. But what I will say, and I think the perfect kind of segue into it, is where I think we ran into that issue with the false peak on the Death March is right where you guys were, Sandy, this year. So a little bit of a more pleasant experience getting to where you were stationed, as opposed to having to climb all the way up to K1 Lodge and that dirt road at the top of Mount Killington.
And what's interesting, though, is because I spent the day up at the top where the racers turned around at the top of K1, and I hiked up to the lodge and back down and up to the lodge and back down, carrying as much water as we could carry several times. And I thought, that wasn't really any big deal because it was fairly short, but add that on to the rest that you had already done. It wasn't until I was going down the gondola on Sunday that I realized exactly how long that trudge really was. And yes, they got you right up to where you thought you were at the top. They jogged you left, about 5 or 10 feet. And then there was a god-awful, some people were doing it on hands and knees because it was so steep right there at the top. And it was a pleasure standing up there, letting people know, this is the top. You are not going any higher. When you get to us, you are done. You get to go down. And I got to yell that for about 10 hours on Saturday and another few hours on Sunday. And it was so awesome to let them know that, yes, it did finally come to an end.
But I'll tell you, and, before we talk about the peak, even though after that it was mostly downhill, there was probably the most treacherous downhill that we have ever gone down at Killington. We went down, and I will never forget the name of this what's the word? The ski slope that we went down. It was called Royal Flush, and I remember that because I caught a guy going into the woods to take a leak right next to the sign that said Royal Flush, and I thought that was
very appropriate.
Yes.
So you came out, we had some trail running, and then I think it was the rope climb. We had the vertical cargo net that we did top of the other mountain, and then you walked down a hill, and it looked like the side of this mountain just dropped off completely. I mean, it had to be like a 50% grade down. So as much as we spent a mile climbing, 1,000+ feet to the Death March, we probably spent a quarter of a mile going down like 900 feet in that descent. And it was everything that you beat up on your legs on the way up the mountain. This thing just murdered your legs and your quads on the way down the mountain. It was torture.
Yeah.
We were able to see that particular slope from the top where we were waiting all day, and you could see the people, and a lot of people just sat down and just kind of scooted down on their backsides. Vince and I waited up at the top on Saturday until at 7:55, we saw one last runner come through, and we figured, okay, it's 8:00 now. We waited 5 minutes, and at 8:00 we said, okay, that there's probably nobody else coming. We couldn't see any more lights coming up the hill. And so we started walking down, and we followed the runner's path for a good chunk of it. But then when you guys went off to do the rope climb and the cargo net, the road kept going straight. You guys did a little loop up and back to the road, and then you kept going down. Whereas we were like, no, we're not following that. And we kept going down the road. But then we ended up taking a wrong turn and ended up coming down the hill into the bucket carry. So I don't know how that one compared, but it was interesting for the two of us.
The bucket carry was a whole other situation.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so let's talk about, what do you want to say about the bucket carry? Other than it was at the very end.
Yeah, so
pretty much the very end.
Pretty much the very end, and this was a unique one. So they opted to do 2 sandbag carries. There was no log carry this year, and for those I could care less. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I guess it's more comfortable to carry a sandbag than it is a log.
Were they the full 65-pound sandbags, or just real quick touch on that?
One of them were like those cement bags, so the weight on those probably varied. But then the others were the waffles, and they were 40 pounds.
Got it.
By the way, the U.S. sandbags are only 40 pounds. The Canadian sandbags for the men are 65 pounds. So the Canada people are putting weight, putting us to shame with their weight.
Are you
don't
sure
let that
it's
catch
not
on,
just the kilogram pound conversion?
Shit. Now I might have to question that. I don't know.
Although 40 pounds would be 88 kilograms. No.
Oh.
40 kilograms would be 88 pounds.
We don't do math on this show.
I had it backwards. Anyway.
Yeah, the bucket carry the bucket carry is terrible in general at every Spartan race, but they obviously have a knack for using every ounce of Killington, and in this case, bucket carry, it was one of those things where it went straight up for a little bit, and you thought you were done as you rounded past like the photographer and the timing mat, and then it kept stepping up a little bit more. I'll tell you, Saturday, the bucket carry obviously was just terrible. When I saw it again on Sunday, there were just piles of rocks thrown everywhere. So it was very obvious that people just either bailed out or people were falling.
I heard there were a lot of falls there.
Yeah, there was definitely a few spots.
Yeah, I concur with that bucket carry. I got there when it was just getting really dark. In fact, the photographer said to me when I got up to that first hill, "You're the second to last person I'm going to take a picture of because I can't see anybody else anymore." And it looked like a gravel graveyard. And I got up to that first hill. I'm like, okay, I got to just keep going. Got up to that second hill. And I'm like, okay, I can see where I have to drop this bucket off. I can get there. It basically turned into a big mind game right at that point. You just had to shift into that other gear, and you had to keep going. There was no way to stop. And with it getting darker and darker by the second, you had no choice but to finish. But yeah, I could tell that a lot of people were struggling with that, but they kept going. They finished it.
Yeah, you don't really have much choice. I will say that when Vince and I came down, like I said, we came down straight down the hill above the rope, the bucket carry, and where you guys went up is where the angle we were coming straight down. And we got a couple of funny looks because, of course, they see headlights coming from the top straight down where the regular runners are going up. And we got a couple looks and it was like, no, we're just spectators. We're not cheating. And they were, oh, okay. Because they were very confused for a moment. But it was quite obvious that we were not runners, not participants. So, there were a lot of spots of gravel on that. And it was pretty steep going down. I was thankful I was going down and I wasn't carrying a 70-pound bucket of rock.
Well, the interesting thing about that with the bucket of rocks, just even before that, you had the sandbag carry. And I mean, I grabbed the sandbag, which, the women's pancake that they gave us, and I'm starting to go up that hill, and I'm like, another hill. You've got to be kidding me. But again, you had to play your own mind game. You had to say, okay, you going to do this, or are you just going to, just do the burpees? And I said, darn it, I'm going to go up that little hill, and I'm going to finish it. And it was the same thing, even going back once we got from the death march, you did the rope climb and that vertical cargo net. I climbed up that cargo net. I got to the top. I switched my legs. That thing started shaking on me. And there was somebody else who was going to climb on it. I said, you got to wait a second, because I'm shaking. The net is shaking. I got to get down from here. And I did. It was, again, that whole mind game of you just got to get over it and finish it. Once we did that, I was one of those people who did the crab climb down that hill. Mm-hmm. When we did started the death march, you could see the people, oh my gosh, they are on their backs. They're literally crawling on their backs down there. And I was one of those people. I could not believe the incline. Like you said, Josh, that had to have been a 50% incline. I mean, to be able to run down that, which a couple of people I saw did, I was like, you go for it. You're crazy. But, again, you had to have that mindset that you're going to get down, you're going to do that sandbag carry, and you're going to do the bucket carry no matter what. So.
Yeah, and it was the last mile, they pack in a sandbag carry. Well, started with an 8-foot wall, which they had right at the bottom of that. Then a sandbag carry right into a bucket carry. So 2 carries, one after another. After that, they sent us to the rig. They had the slip wall, the spear throw, Olympus, the A-frame, the fire jump. I mean, they packed it in that last mile. You definitely earned it when you jumped over that fire jump. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, did you guys like that? Because all of that was down where the spectators could see. So that means that there were probably a whole lot more people there to cheer you on, to kind of give that boost. Did you like having stuff at the bottom, or was it kind of oh God, here we go, bang, 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 I'm exhausted?
I have to admit I liked it because my husband was a spectator. He was taking a lot of pictures of the team and of myself. So it was nice to actually see him on the course, or right at the course, and get the encouragement that I needed at that point, because, it was almost pitch black and we just wanted to finish. I will admit there was that point where, like, I'm there, but I got to get through these gosh darn obstacles, You couldn't just jump over to the fire and finish. But I will say it would have been nice if maybe they had spaced it out just a little bit. But I don't know where they could have put any more of those obstacles, either uphill or downhill. So, in the end it worked out, but maybe just, I don't know, space them out just a tiny bit more.
Yeah, it's funny because you get down to, you get past that bucket carry and you come out of the woods there and you can see the finish line.
Yep.
And you're like, great, it's right there, but it's still a solid 20 minutes of you doing obstacle after obstacle of getting there. So, I mean, I do like how they kind of pack everything in there. It does stink, obviously, that there's 13 miles of trail and hill running in between that final kind of charge of obstacles. But, it's a great way to kind of have all the spectators involved, and you've got the Ultra Beasters who had their bins and everything right there near the rig, which was a nice place for it. So yeah, I mean, they use every part of that. I'd love to see them. I don't know if they could, but I'd love to see them put some kind of rigging or something on the bridge of over the lake. Maybe get creative with the top of the bridge next year instead of underneath. So I don't know.
I don't know that they'll do that though, because I know that there were medics stationed up there watching the people in the water. When we went by, every time there were at least 2 guys or 2 volunteers with the bright yellow medic shirts on. So, and that's a huge spectator. We like to come and watch and yell and watch you guys swim and listen to you yell that I'm coming, Sandy. Finally got to return the favor. Oh, Linda, he had to listen to that for about 10 hours a couple of years ago because he was constantly ahead of me.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm still coming, Josh. I'm behind you, but I'm still here. So that's why that was so funny.
That's what I do at Killington now. I just drag people through it. So,
well, that's okay. But at least they finish, right? So,
I'm 2 for 2 on helping people finish so far. So,
yep.
Nice.
Yes, it is. All right. So, what else What else? So we talked about the really sucky parts. What else? Anything else stand out?
Yeah. The part that you took control of, Sandy. So we have to talk about what you did at the top of the mountain. And for those that don't know, that might not have heard about it. So Sandy this year decided to take whatever funds would have been her registration fees and turn that into the equivalent amount of bite-sized candy, which was probably in the realm of 60 to 100 pounds all totaled, with hers and Kelly's and everybody else's that were up top. So Sandy and team decided to station themselves at the top of the peak and hand out candy to, and what she promised last year. And I went back and listened to the podcast, and you were truly
did you really?
Said, I'm going to hand out candy to every single runner that comes past me at the top of that mountain. And I can almost guarantee you probably hit every single one of them. So now it's your turn to talk a little bit about what you decided to do on Saturday for everyone, and Sunday.
Well, I guarantee you I had more fun than almost anybody else on Saturday and Sunday. I hands down, doing that was so awesome. But yeah, last year I brought just a couple bags of Snickers, and then I felt bad because I didn't have very much to hand out. So I had to be very particular and go, oh, there's a spot and I'm going to give it to them. Because when you only have, 60 pieces of candy, that doesn't do you a whole lot of good. So last year I determined that I was going to do this, and I was very vocal about it. And apparently my being vocal about it, other people thought, I want to do that too, which ended up being great because I could have spent, $500-$600 on candy trying to feed all. I thought, okay, there's 3,000 runners. I had about 900 pieces of candy with me that I lugged up, and it was so funny trying to fit it all into backpacks. So we ended up at the top, and we kind of formed our own little welcoming crew, and it was fantastic being able to, like I said, yell at people and say, this is the top. There are no more false summits. When you get to us, you are done and you get to go down. And the worst part of the whole day was that we thought that the next water station was a quarter to a half mile beyond. And apparently people were told at the bottom of the mountain, there's water at the top. And I don't know why that was ever said to anyone. I don't know if Spartan said it. I don't know if the volunteer, I don't know where that came from, because there was never any water at the top. There was never a plan for any water at the top. And so people got to us and said, where's the water? And we had to tell them there is no water.
There was some water. So after we went up to the top, we ran downhill a little bit and then hiked up again a little bit, maybe a half a mile to where the rope climb was.
Yeah.
And there was water there. So it's where the course kind of intersected with where the sprint course broke off and then where you rejoined it later in the day. So when we started the race, it was maybe 2 miles in, we went over the inverted wall and there's a water station there. And then when we got to where the rope climb was, it was kind of a shared water station. So there really actually was water there, but it was probably a half a mile after the peak of the mountain. So they got water. It just wasn't right behind you and your candy. So
well, what was happening was the Ultra Beasters came through on their second laps, and the people who finished their first lap came up to cheer after they were finished. And they were saying that there was water there, but nobody realized that you could walk from where they were because it technically went off course, is what they were saying. So that really the next water was after the bucket carry, which was a mile and a half later.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, 50 yards past the rope climb, but I walked right over to it. I wasn't skipping any water. So.
I skipped it at that point because I just wanted to keep going. Fortunately, I had my hydration pack, but there were a lot of people who were in front of me and behind me and just said, nah, I'm not going to walk that extra feet. But we were also on the course at that point for, 10 and a half hours. We just wanted to be done.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I have to give Spartan at least a little credit on two things that they've done well this year, especially, and a little bit of last year as well. One, they've nailed water on every single course that I've run on this year. There has not been a course where water has ever been in question. And it's also very widely communicated in advance, especially on the East Coast. Jay Barnes does very well at communicating water and expectations for the racers. And two, and this is kind of a little bit of a gripe that I have, their mileage markers now are spot on. They've got mileage markers every single mile. I don't think they missed a single one yesterday. And they are probably as close to, true to life GPS mileage as you're going to get. That whole mindset of like Spartan miles and we're just playing games with you like that was funny 3 years ago. But I really wish people would just get over that and say, oh, here's mile 12. We've hit mile 12. Now when you hit mile 12, everyone's like, it's not really mile 12. It actually was like exactly mile 12.
It was very close. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
unfortunately,
they've done a great job.
Spartans set themselves up for that because in no previous years were mile markers anywhere near where they actually should have been. And so people come to expect that. So you can't blame the people either because it's kind of like, well, the boy who cried wolf. You do it that way enough times and people are going to quit believing you.
Right.
Mm.
So maybe it'll take a couple of times for people to go, okay, they've quit doing that and quit playing games. But Josh, you're the first person I've heard that said they got water right at Killington this year. Everyone else that I've talked to said that it was awful.
See, I don't see how that can be. You came up to every water station. There's always water cups filled now. The volunteers at water stations are amazing lately. So there's always water readily available. I don't know whoever invented this idea of stacking the water cups on the cones. And if you've ever passed a water station at Spartan this year, they now stack cups on cones when you're done with them. That's genius. It's so efficient. It's amazing. But they had, I think, 8 different, almost 9 if you count doubling up at the rope climb. And 2 of them at least you could fill your packs. And on Sunday,
yes,
most of them were saying you could fill packs because they had water to spare at that point.
Yes, absolutely.
So
yep.
Okay.
if somebody was complaining about water, I almost think maybe they didn't plan their water accordingly. I don't know.
Well, most of the people that we talked to said that there was only one place they were allowed to fill their packs. And most of them tried to fill it at the bottom of the rope of the death march and were told, no, there was water at the top. And then when there wasn't any water at the top, they were crushed.
Yeah,
so, and it got worse as the day went on. You've got the open folks, because we would ask people, it even got to be 4:00 and we'd ask people, what time did you start? And it was everywhere from I started at 11 to I started at 8.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe Spartan needs to do I can't say they need to do a better job at getting the instructions out there because leading up to every race that Jason Barnes has done, he's done Facebook Live videos about water. And before every wave that I was a witness to, he said I'm recalling it now. So he said we had three refill stations, and one of them is that double station, the one at the inverted wall and the rope climb. So you could have filled it at mile, 2 or 3, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could have hit it again on the second time after the death march. And then the other refill station was right after the swim before you did the mud crawl and the Tyrolean traverse. They had water and they had a food station there where they were handing out blocks. So I got to disagree. I think they've nailed it every single race this year. I haven't had any complaints about it. I didn't even have to fill my pack up both days because they had so much water available in cups for me.
I agree with that. On Sunday, I went in with a full pack. I thought the water stations were very well spaced out. I didn't have to refill my hydration pack because I went with the water that they had at the stations. And you had to plan accordingly. That was a big thing. I don't think they could have done it any better.
All right. Well, good.
I do still chuckle when I see people out there without any hydration packs or food or anything like that.
That's one thing that kind of bothered me, that there were a lot of people out there that it was as if they were just going for a little leisurely hike, at your local state park. No packs, no nothing. No food, no nothing. If they had it, it was hidden. You couldn't see it. Yeah. But this was actually the first race that I brought my hydration pack with me. I don't do that. And when I heard, beforehand, there's not enough water stations, you better bring your own, I did. I'm glad I did, but, I planned accordingly and there was plenty of water to be had.
Well, good. All right. Well, and me as just someone there spectating, I only had to go off of what people told me. And it was interesting because the lodge itself and the gondola, we knew that the gondola was going to close at 5:00. So starting at about 4:15, every spectator that was up there, we let them know, hey, the gondola closes at 5. If you don't want to walk down, You have to be on the gondola by 5 o'clock. We reiterated it at 20 till, 15 till, and 10 till. And actually at 10 till, I walked around and personally asked every single person, are you aware? And so they were able to take care of that. But right before 5 o'clock, we had been going up with every water bottle that we had available. I had a soft gallon. What was it, Josh? A soft gallon? What do we call those?
It's a large gallon.
Large gallon.
Large gallon.
One of those from the grocery store, not quite a gallon of water. And we kept refilling that. And Ron Stefero was the hero. He went up to the lodge and said, we need as much water as you can give us. Do you have anything available where you can give us as large a quantity of water as possible? And the guy says, well, I got a 5-gallon pickle bucket. Let me rinse it out for you. And Ron was like, no, don't rinse it out. Just fill it full of water. And so he hauled that thing down, and we had 5 cups and a communal 5-gallon bucket of water. And we handed it out a sip at a time, and they had to give us the cups back. And by oh my God, the last inch was gross. Yeah. But people were like, I don't care. I'm drinking it anyway. I need water. The poor woman who got the last little bit, she was like, I'm just going to throw some of my electrolytes in here and kind of disguise the fact that that looks disgusting, and I'm going to drink it anyway. And she did, because it was what she had. And then after that,
people will do.
Absolutely.
We were out of water. We had nothing left.
And Sandy, I'm so sorry I missed you guys on the top of the hill. You guys were probably going down the gondola as I was going up that death march. I was really looking forward to seeing you guys, but I loved seeing the pictures from Saturday. I mean, that was just inspiration alone, in the hopes of seeing you guys up there. And when I got up to the top, I'm like, I know they were. I know they were here. I know they were here. I could feel it. So
Vince and I left a little earlier than everybody else, but I don't know how late everybody else was able to be up there. But after being up there till 8 o'clock on Saturday, unfortunately, we weren't able to. But next year, I'm going to figure out a way to bring stuff on Sunday too, and stay and sweep the last runner just like I did this year on Saturday.
Yeah, I was probably.
I'll figure it out somehow.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was probably up there around 5:30, 6 o'clock maybe. So I had been gone
for a couple hours at least.
Oh, that's okay.
Unfortunately.
There were 2 points that I remember in terms of like changing of my mindset on that. And once was coming to the top of Sky Peak and Bear Mountain. There was a team of volunteer girls there right before Stairway to Sparta that were probably the loudest, most like raucous volunteer group I've ever met in my life. They're super happy about everything. I'm on one of their Snapchat feeds somewhere, but they were like cheering people on. They were high-fiving people. And then the second one were you guys. And that, you got to the top of the death march and you could hear like this kind of buzz at the top of the mountain. You could hear people yelling and whatnot. And then it sent us back into the woods, and you got the woods, and you go up this path, and it's muddy and whatnot. And then you come out of the woods, and you see the hill in front of you, and then you can see all of you guys standing, looking down at you, like screaming as you come out of the woods, like you've only got just this much further to go. You guys saw me on Sunday. It took literally every physical ounce of my being to just walk up that mountain again. But it's great to just have your own personal cheering squad kind of as you're coming up these mountains. It really was a great time, and it was the perfect place for you guys to kind of set up camp and make sure that everybody got that final change in mindset that they needed, because at that point you hate your life. Anything, right? I took a pineapple lifesaver that was just the greatest tasting thing in the world on Sunday. So yeah, it was a perfect way to kind of set yourself up to finish in the right mindset for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we got to the end, and on Saturday night we ran out of candy completely. So a couple of lessons learned. Lesson number 1, do not at the beginning of the day just put the bucket out where people can grab whatever they want, because at the beginning of the day, some people were taking 8 and 12 pieces each. So that is lesson number 1 learned. Ration it, say you can take 1 or 2 each, because I need enough for all 3,000 people who are coming by me. So quit being a selfish jerk. I wouldn't actually say that, but I would say, limit yourself to what you're taking. And And number 2, bring more than 2 rollers. Early on in the day, not many people, they were like, oh, no, we're good. By the end, people were waiting in line for the rollers. I had one really aggressive, one of those rollers with the little spikes on it and one piece of PVC pipe. Next year, I'll bring 4 or 5. Make sure there's enough for everybody to have going around, because I think some people that really helped.
I saw people even grabbing tree branches and trying to use those as rollers. I noticed there were an awful lot of people that were cramping. And I had my little things of shop locks, and I was trying to offer them to people. They was like, no, I'm good. But I said, are you okay? Are you cramping? And I could not believe how many people were having issues, with cramping. And somebody grabbed a tree branch and was carrying it with them. And every time they were cramping up, they were trying to roll themselves out.
Yep. We saw a bunch of that at the top. A couple people go, I've been carrying this. And one guy had a rock that he found that had a smooth edge on it, that he was using the rock to work it out a little bit. So we'll figure out a way to do that. I do hope that the next year that they make sure to allow people to fill packs at the beginning of the death march at the bottom, because every single person said no, they weren't allowed to. Josh, you're the first one I've heard that said yes, you could have.
No, it's they didn't allow you to fill at the bottom of the death march. I agree with that.
Okay.
But there were 3 different distinct spots where you could fill up.
Yes.
Okay. So those were the lessons. Make sure I've got enough. But it was so funny. It was dark, and about 20 feet away, you could only see headlights. I hear a guy go, oh my God, I am so hungry. And I'm eating my own peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which is my only dinner. And I had already given away everything else. And I said, I've got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Would you like a bite? And he goes like, oh my God, yes. And I think he ate a quarter of the sandwich in one bite. It was awesome. Oh my God. And apparently he commented in another thread, and somebody realized, I bet I know who that was. And he's offered me as sole beneficiary of his life insurance policy. So apparently I have a fan for a quarter of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
All right.
It's those little things that matter, Sandy.
Yeah. By the end, we were giving away anything we had to give away. All of my personal food that I had brought up, because I knew I was going to be up there 10 hours. Yeah. I had planned on it all along. I knew I had my headlamp. I had planned on walking down. I was not going down with the gondola at 5:00. So next year, hopefully we can do it on Sunday as well. And I guarantee you it was more of an honor for me to be able to be up there to do it than it was for all the people who say that it helped and gave them a boost and it was what they needed. On Sunday, it was very sweet. A woman tried to hand me money. She said, you saved our racer yesterday. She was about ready to quit, and what you guys did for her. So please take this towards your efforts. And I was like, absolutely not. You can give me a hug. Oh, and the racers were so funny. They were like, you don't want to hug me. I was like, I've been hugging dirty, sweaty, nasty people all day. I don't care. Come here.
Yeah, I saw Rena at the end of the day, and her white shirt had like just brown chest marks because you could tell just a bunch of dirty people had hugged her all day.
Oh, I knew better than to wear white.
Yeah. Rule number 3, don't wear white on race day.
Right.
But it was funny. A lot of people thought we were there as Spartan volunteers. It was like, nope, we're up here as spectators just for the fun of it.
Wow. And I think you got a shout out on one of the other threads as well to that, because, like you said, a lot of people were so inspired by that. So, yeah, the word got out that you guys were doing that.
Well, I heard a lot of people say, instead of doing this next year, I'm going to come up and volunteer and bring candy. So we'll have to make sure it doesn't become a zoo, or we need to spread the people who want to bring candy, spread them out after the bucket carry, after the other bear mount, wherever else.
Yes.
We can spread out so that it doesn't become a complete circus, because that's obviously not the point either.
No.
So, final wrap up. Josh, you doing it again?
Absolutely. I'll be back next year. Maybe for the Ultra Beast, maybe not. I don't know. The one year I decide to walk back the Ultra Beast, they decide to give out those really cool Ultra Beast bibs to everybody that finishes first lap and goes out for number 2. So I hate when I miss out on cool things. But either way, I'll be back at Killington for sure running next year. Absolutely.
On Saturday, with your mindset, would you have wanted to go out for a second lap when you finished the first?
Yeah, well, so here's the thing.
Because you didn't go into it planning to, so obviously your mindset was completely different.
Right.
So this might be an unfair question.
Maybe a little bit, and I felt good crossing the finish line, but I also felt good because I didn't push myself. Obviously, I was there for someone else and another reason. So crossing the finish line, one, it took me 8 hours, so I wouldn't have even made a cutoff had I done it at that pace anyway. But if I went at a faster pace, obviously, and I was more exhausted at the end, I would have gone out. Would I have made it? I don't know, but yeah, I would have gone out. I think this was just to kind of, I don't want to say criticize, but just to kind of put it out there. Before the event, I think there was a lot of chatter and a lot of conversation about, was this going to be an easy beast? When Jay Barnes went out and said it was only going to be 13 and a half, maybe 14 miles, when we're accustomed to beasts that push 16 and 17 miles at Killington. There was obviously a lot of thought in my head that, man, the one time I'm going to skip out on the Ultra Beast here, I'm skipping out on what could be an easy one, but you factor in, even though it was 14 miles, they still packed the same elevation into those 14 miles. So
they sure did. Yes, they did.
Not only you're only going 14 miles, but you're going just as high and just as far. So it was
steeper.
Right, exactly. And it was an accomplishment for everybody to finish, whether it was the Beast or the Ultra Beast or the people that raced both days. It was a hell of an event. I have to give Spartan a thumbs up when they deserve it, and they absolutely deserve it for this race. Jay Barnes and his team do a wonderful job.
I'll be interested to see the stats. I'd love to know what the DNF percentage was for both the Beast and the Ultra Beast, because I think Killington averages about a 30 to 40% DNF.
Yeah, I think I saw, and this is just anecdotal, but I was reading in one of the Ultra Beast forums was about a 58% completion rate. So 42%.
42%
DNF, and not quite as high as it was last year. But I think Spartan wants people to get out and try the Ultra Beasts, and I think they want them to complete them, and I think that's why we see more and more of them, because maybe we'll talk about this next show. Now they just teased a 24-hour ultra event, and obviously no other details than that, but I think they want people to really push themselves, and they've got to find new and creative ways to get people back out on the course year after year.
Yeah, that's true. But it'll be cool to see those stats and see how it went. I do know that when people were coming through up at the top and only had an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes left, they were like, is it even possible to finish? And we told them, yes, you have 3 miles left, but you have to hustle. You cannot dawdle at all. And we did see at least 2 of the girls who came through as either the 4th or 5th to the last runners that passed that point did actually finish, whereas a bunch did not. So we don't know what happened. Some people are faster downhill than others, and that would make all the difference in the world. But, yes, it's still possible, but you really got to hustle. So, Linda, I know right now not to ask if you're doing it yet or not. We'll give you a couple of weeks, and you can decide whether or not the memory of it, which lasts, the oh, hell no, or okay, that wasn't so bad. If I train more, maybe I'll try it again next year. So we'll have to check back in with you.
Yeah.
But on a scale of 1 to 10, though, what do you give it in terms of satisfaction rating?
Oh, 10 plus. I mean, it certainly lived up to its experience, lived up to its billing, based on everything that I read and heard and saw about it. I mean, this was absolutely, truly 100% a mind-blowing experience. This race tested you physically, mentally, emotionally. If you didn't, if the death march wasn't going to kill you, nothing else was. I mean, this was push yourself to the limit, get through as many obstacles or get your burpees done as possible. I would love to do it again. That's going to take some thought and some training as to whether I would do it again. But just if this was my one and only Killington beast, it will not be my last beast, because I will be going for my second trifecta by the end of the year. But if this is my one and only Killington beast, I would be very happy. I am so happy with the support that I got on the course and all the encouragement before, during, and after from, friends, not even non-obstacle course race friends, just saying you can do this. This was truly an amazing experience. I finished that race on such a high. Jumping over the fire was amazing, and crossing that finish line, throwing my hands up in the air and saying I did this was absolutely wonderful. Absolutely
Congratulations.
wonderful.
That's awesome.
Thank you. In fact,
Absolutely.
I just put together my trifecta medal thing. I had bought the Delta plate, and let me see if I can try and show you. Oh, well, nobody can see it.
Nobody else can see it, but Josh and I can see it.
But you guys, I got
it's
the Delta
beautiful,
plate.
everybody. Absolutely
It's gorgeous.
gorgeous.
Yeah, it's that's just, that was worth it. When I did my first sprint at Tuxedo back in, I think it was May or June, I looked at my pie piece and I'm like, that looks so incomplete. I got to finish this. Yes. So I did it. And by the end of the year, I will have 2 of those. So I'm
What's
so
your
happy
second
with
one
it.
going to be? Dallas or Florida?
My second one's going to be Florida. I'm going to do my sprint in Philly. I'm going to do my super in New Jersey. And then I'm going to finish it up with, knock on wood, in the nice warm weather of Florida in December with the Beast.
Nice.
Yes.
Will we see you at Fenway?
No, because that's the day of the New Jersey Super.
Yep, they're the same day this year.
Oh, that's right.
Although are the New Jersey, I don't remember, are they both days or one day?
Now, so Jersey's one day. It was 2 days originally, but they canceled Sunday. So
Okay.
you could be crazy like Molly and do the Jersey Super in the morning and then drive up to Fenway and complete the last wave of the day in Fenway. So
I've heard of that. Molly
or
and a couple
come
other
to
people.
Fenway on Sunday.
or you can do Fenway on Sunday. Yeah.
That would be
So.
interesting. Now you're getting me thinking, guys.
And this is what happens after races, but we'll leave it on a high. I think it's a perfect way to finish, and
I
think the overall experience for Killington this year is wildly positive for many people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to get your story, Linda. Thanks for joining us, and Sandy, thanks for being there with candy and cookies and everything else. And everyone else who was there. It was great to see the team. And I think this is one of those events where every year you can always count on catching up with those friends that you might not have seen in a while. And I think Killington's the one place to do it. Fenway's another. And in a few weeks, we have Worlds coming up in Canada. So tons to look forward to. But for that, we will end the show there. And until the next one, and whatever next topic finds its way to our desk. So thanks for listening, and have a good night.
As always, guys, thanks so much for checking out the show. We'd love to hear what you think, so give us some feedback. Submit a question, share a story from one of your recent races or events. I think the show gets better and better with your participation, and it's not just Paul, Sandy, and myself talking. So to reach out, ask questions, suggest a topic, whatever it may be, follow along on Facebook. We've got a dedicated Any Spahtens show page, or you can join the community at Any Spahtens on Facebook as well. Twitter's your thing. Shoot us a tweet at Any Spahtens. And if you want to find our full library of episodes, I'd recommend either iTunes or Stitcher. So again, for Paul, Sandy, myself, thanks so much for listening, and until next time.